Okay, so we are live, I think, hopefully. Okay, so developer meeting 21, time flies. So on the dev sync, I spent the better of the last 2 weeks making sure my code was ready, mostly oscillations. I pushed a lot of tests regarding that. Also made sure that the recurrent transfers were mergeable again, because there was some changes regarding, I think, the latest boost changes, or making it compatible with Ubuntu 20, but that made it required a rebase, so I did that. What else? Yeah, pretty much testing, all hands on that.
Okay. As far as what we're doing, we're still doing a little bit. We're still writing, doing some testing of the curation reward changes, and then we'll make the change for the linear convergent post rewards to go to linear for that. I think that's probably be done in the next day or two. We're also working on the HBD conversion code. We've got a test plan written. The code itself is written, and it replayed okay, and we're developing a test plan for it now. So that also should be finished in the next day or so. We made some other changes. The test voter exploration code all seems fine, so nothing really done on that lately. We fixed the bug that blocked voting on already paid Hive posts, and we made some other minor fixes in the code that we just found, and a few more that we'll still make. As you noted, Ubuntu 20 support is now been merged and developed, so you can basically build on 18 or 20. Mira configuration has been removed from the build, so it's no longer possible to build Mira. And we did some other cleanup in the CMake settings to make it easier for build the different configurations for Hive-D. So we think on our side, we think we'll have everything ready by the end of this week. So our code freeze on all the code we're working on. On the HiveMind side, we made one change to reduce the memory required by HiveMind. We saw that when it hit about the time it hit 50 million blocks, it was using about 15 gigs of memory. And we did a measurement, and it seems like it's down to 10 gigabytes now, but we think there's still more that we can cut out. So we are still analyzing that issue to see if we can further reduce the amount of memory consumed by the Python process. We have a fix implemented for the API, HiveMind API pagination issue that was filed, but we're still reviewing that before it's merged in. And we also are going to make some improvements to the OpenE API documentation for HiveMind. We're also doing a test to check how HiveMind works on low-end machine that doesn't have an SSD. And it's only got 8 gigabytes of memory, and it's an Intel i3. So it did manage to reach sync state, but we still want to examine a little more. It had some problems when it passed out of massive sync into regular live sync. So we're going to investigate that a little bit just to figure out what happened there. It's really the first time we've tested, I guess anyone's tested HiveMind syncing on a truly low-end machine. So what else? We fixed the Hive-D replay problem associated with some of the code cleanup changes. And so we're replaying, develop branches replaying again without any problems. And I think that's about it that comes to mind right offhand right now.
How long did it take for the low-end machine to sync, pretty much?
I don't know if we have I don't know if we have a firm benchmark on it or not. It's a good question. Gandalf, do you recall?
You mean this low-end machine?
Yeah.
Yes.
We were using dump to make it variable. Yes, but it's able to keep in sync, because dump is like 1 day old. It needs to catch up with multi-blocks and then go to single block sync, and it stays there. Per block operations takes less than half a second.
So what was the
So
problem?
there is.
What was the problem that we hit again? I can't recall. What was the problem that we hit with it then? Because if it's maintaining live sync,
not all operations are behaving stable. So from time to time, it takes like 25 seconds to process.
Okay. So some blocks it's processing. It's taking longer than the 3 seconds, but on average, it's taking about half a second.
Yes, less than half a second.
Less than half a second. Okay. Okay.
I heard the six star to mute. Okay, so that's good. Moving on to today's subject, RC deviations. Do we include it or not in the end? Because I feel like it's pretty much widely tested, and we'll have another month to figure out if it's truly stable enough. But at this point, pretty much everything is tested.
Okay. So we haven't had a chance to review that code much. We looked over it a little bit before the meeting, and Bartek had some concerns, which if he's around, I'm going to let him share. Maybe if he's not, he might not be able to unmute. So I can relay what I know. One of the concerns he had was that there's some operations, there's some transaction operations associated with the RC plugin. I mean, with the RC delegations feature, and they're in the RC plugin apparently, which is normally where only non-consensus code is included. But in this case, these are, the operations themselves are consensus, I guess, even though RC itself isn't. So that's a little unique, I guess.
Well,
I mean,
okay.
at minimum, it's going to require that someone, I mean, I think the RC plugin is by just sort of right now, sort of required for a witness to run. But
yeah, it pretty much is.
But it doesn't really it doesn't quite fit the normal model, right? We don't normally have operations in the plugins. The other thing I remember he's concerned about is he thinks he's concerned about memory requirements. So he wants something to test to verify that we don't have a potential memory explosion in any of the use cases.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Thanks, Dan. I'd like to see prepared unit tests which will create a lot of data structure created by such operations or by API calls involved by this implementation, just to see how much memory will be used by Hive. Because I'd like to avoid case when we lost the control over it and again fell into performance problems because of huge usage of shared memory file. I think if we are expecting, and you have said on Mattermost how that some data structure are expected to be present in a lot of instances. So maybe it is better to re-implement the storage to regular SQL database and next store it there without any limits actually, instead of holding them in memory. But maybe let's create first such benchmark example, which will show us how it can behave and how much operation and data we can store in Hive without some potential problems.
What would be too much memory for you as a benchmark?
Sorry, could you repeat? Because
Sorry.
He's asking how much memory we consider too much memory.
if whole consensus node right now matches or needs to execute, I suppose, in 18 gigabytes, I think we should not allow to cross through 24 gigabytes in most pessimistic case. But we need to have in mind that if we decide to start this implementation and using it, it will be very hard to remove it again. And if every witness will have it working on their machine, it just will need to have required hardware. So I'm just trying to be much more safe right now when we can change implementation decisions very easy and without any cost, especially specific to handling working blockchain instances, because right now it's a good time for that. If we know that millions of delegations will not use more than, I assume, 1 gigabyte, so I think we can say that this implementation is quite safe. But otherwise, I think it can make some problems. Especially that if I could understand this feature, there can be easy made association between pools, users, and delegations of resource credits between them. So maybe it will be even very easy to generate a lot of data in the Hive node.
Yeah, I see. Well, I guess we'll have to test it and see later through this week. It shouldn't be too hard for me to build those unit tests. I'll just see how much memory it takes for the thing to handle, well, let's say 1 million. 1 million delegations.
Yeah, 1 million should be sufficient test, I think.
Okay. So moving on, I guess this is also kind of on the subject. There is an issue with the RSA is that it's not easily transferable to HiveMind, because then we'd have to do some RSA calculations in HiveMind to like keep it up to date as every block progresses. And so that means that we had an issue earlier this year where we wanted to build an incoming Hive power delegation API feature, and we were like, yes, but the index would cost too much, and we can just do it in HiveMind instead. But in that case, I feel like we may want to do it in HiveD, but then that costs more. Do you have some thoughts on this? Because ultimately it's not that needed, but UX-wise, I'm sure that the front ends will require it. But it could also be done as like from SQL via other like third-party sources.
Sorry, so you're talking about an API to do what?
To fetch all of the incoming RC delegations for an account.
Oh, okay.
Because right now it's from an account to a pool or from a pool to an account. But you cannot like get an account and know all of the sources that's coming to you. Although you can know the sum.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. I guess it's also part of the unit test, and we'll see how much it impacts us or not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably going to be the answer there.
So then that's one thing we haven't really touched on, but that I noticed while testing is that we are still limiting 5 custom JSON operations per block. And do you have any insight as to why it was done that way? I only found that out like yesterday, so I haven't had time to research.
I mean, I've known about it, but I just assumed that they were afraid it could be abused in various ways. One thing, I think they can be quite fairly large transactions, and somebody might just be able to eat up most of the eat up most of the block size because the block isn't that big itself. If somebody could generate a bunch of these things, basically fill up the block.
Yeah. So my consideration is that as we move into, let's say, the next 6 months, so let's say we have 1 month and then 6 months down the line, we have Half-Life 26. I'm afraid that in that timeline, we'll have an increased need for custom piece integration from your team when you do the layer 2 stuff, and from all of the guys who are building like layer 2.
So the limit's on a single account, right?
Oh, I thought it was per block. If it's per account, that's totally fine. If it, I thought it was per, but if it's per account,
I mean, check. I don't know. I'd assumed it would be per account.
If it's per account, it's not really a limitation, right? Like I feel like it's easy to build then.
I mean, yeah. I mean, they could have done it per, but you're right. They could have done it per block because they're afraid of somebody with a bunch of accounts doing something too. Yeah, I do not know the answer. I mean, it seems like if it's per block, it shouldn't be based on the number of operations. It should be the size of the operations of anything. In other words, they're like a cumulative total that you could use up over in a given block, just so you don't eat the whole block up with them. But yeah, it's something I think would need some research. Unfortunately, we're getting close to the end of when we can do that kind of research, but I guess we can do something quick and just sort of get a quick feeling for it.
Oh, Rishi mentioned it's per account. So, okay.
Oh, it is per account. Good.
I guess
okay,
it's good
that's what I was thinking. Okay, that's good.
Which is concerning, I guess. Okay.
Why is that concerning?
Well, because assuming this limitation was in place to avoid having one account fill out the block, then anyone can create like 100 accounts.
Yeah, but I guess it's a little more of a.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't think we're going to change it, and it's obviously not been abused so far. So.
Yeah, I mean, if it's per account, then it's totally fine. I was just afraid that if it was per block, then we would hit like limitations. And
yeah, that would be. I would have been. I mean, I frankly would have been surprised because I think that would be a limit that would be hitting things now.
I mean, I feel like there are so few big actors, well, big quote unquote, that are using it that I feel like they would have implemented it.
The problem is some of these games, they've just, I mean, they use so many of these things.
Yeah, I know.
It's heavy overkill almost, but.
Yeah, I feel like they would have, like, if this was per block.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. They could have delayed them, but I think they would have been complaining because they'd have, a delay of a block is 3 seconds.
Yeah, true. Okay, so good on that end. That's great news, actually. So then onto the testnet. So if you're done by the end of next week, that means we are ready more or less by.
I think the weekend. Yeah, we're looking at. We can start the testnet on the weekend, I think.
Yeah, so we can. How do you want to set that up? Last time I organized this, do you want to do it that time, or do you want me to do it? I don't mind it.
I just figured the witnesses, so if you want to be involved in that as a witness, that's fine. If you want to be the orchestrator, I don't care. Any witness I think should be able to stand up and do this, because there's no coding involved in this, right? It's strictly a process of check. It's what every witness can do. They can check out code and build it. So.
Yeah, there is a bit of
anybody with some servers can get the ball going.
Yeah. So
yeah, I know.
So last time for Half-Life 24, we mentioned a bug bounty, but we never really got that rolling, and that wasn't really necessary. And I'm bringing it to the table again this time, but But with HBD at $2, it's hard to really justify making a proposal, etc.
Frankly, I just think these bug bounty programs wind up being more overhead than they're worth. I mean, there's management of them and everything else, and I just don't know that it's inspiring any extra real work.
I don't have any hard opinion on it. So,
I mean, I think if anybody I just can't imagine a lot of people are going to be spending a lot of time just to find a bug to make a bounty that wouldn't just look for the bug anyways. But I could be wrong. Maybe somebody will tell me I'll be much more incentivized to do work if there's a bug bounty and we can talk about it. But it's not going to change the way we do anything here.
Yeah, true. So yeah, then we move into the less important stuff, quote unquote. There is a HiveStem hackathon happening soon. TM. I don't really know when it's happening, but there was some discussion on Mattermost about how we could make them work on a new algorithm to sort stuff in HiveMind, like the communities, etc. How do you think that's like feasible? Because then, well, we would have to build a guide to let them work easily, because as we've seen with IMWAC, I think it can get the learning curve for HiveMind can be quite hard, and also I'm not sure code done in a hackathon, even though it's 2 months long, would be suitable to be merged quite right away. So I just wanted to get your take on this.
So your question is, oh, sorry,
is it
I missed
feasible?
it.
Okay, so,
Is
yeah.
what feasible? Yeah.
Is it feasible to have the people from the Steam STEM hackathon work on HiveMind, basically?
Yeah, I think that's completely feasible. Yeah, I think that's probably the simplest thing for someone to work on of what's available. I mean, it's
so
unless you say a third party. I mean, I mean, I guess there's two things that you could do in a hackathon. You could make changes to HiveMind, or you could use HiveMind.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, I guess I'll try to make a guide and just to let people not spend like half a week setting up a local.
Yeah, I think we need more of a guide for HiveMind for sure.
Yeah, pretty much. Like just how to use mocks. Like yes, set up a
yeah,
Hive,
I mean,
sync 5 million blocks.
Yeah, that kind of stuff I think would definitely be useful. I mean, it's all new stuff, and yeah, it's.
Yeah, I think I'll make a HackMD and then I'll send it to you guys so you can review it before I push it.
Yeah, I mean, basically what we're talking about is a contribution guide, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Well,
yeah,
more than a contribution guide. More of a tutorial on how to. Yeah, I guess that falls into it. But yeah, I mean, it depends. To me, a contribution guide is more like guidelines than anything else.
Yeah, I get your. I mean, for me, a contribution guideline should give you a pretty good idea how you should actually do work in the code base.
Speaking of which, we don't have one for Hive-D as well. Might as well. But
yeah,
it's like such a beast that it's hard to sum it up in like
yeah, it's harder for us to anticipate that we'll get a lot of people joining on that right now.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I'll see with Marky Mark to see when he intends to have it run and everything.
But I mean, I think what you're talking about as a guide is useful regardless. I mean,
yeah, obviously. Just because we've already brushed off one dev who couldn't get it running, so
yeah, we've seen it's yeah.
So then there is right now we're using Zoom, which works fine, but it's also a paying platform. I mean, it's a platform we pay thanks to Roland, and so yeah, we never really tried any other platform which are free, like Jitsi, or I don't really know which all of those there is. And at the same time, we could also move the meeting ahead by a few hours to accommodate other people, namely Asgarth. Do you guys have any thoughts on that, especially because
I don't really care on the applications that are used for the meetings. I mean, whatever is easiest for who's ever dealing with that is fine by me. So I guess right now it's Crimson Cloud, right? So
yep.
I guess feels like whoever is doing the work should get the decision on that one. And as far as the meeting times, personally, it's not a big deal what the time is, as long as we don't go really really early in the morning, which isn't, I think that would take quite a few hours from now. So I can go either way. I don't know what the other guys, anybody else want to say how they are as far as times go?
I'm okay to move it forward for 1 hour, but no more later, please.
Okay.
Bartek, do you mind moving it an hour later?
So I assume we are trying to move it to 7 p.m. set time or 8 p.m. set time?
8 p.m. I guess.
8.
It's 7 right now, right?
Yes,
7
yes,
cent right now.
yes,
So
but
I think
earlier we have at 6, so I don't know which
yeah, I
references
don't know.
are going 1 hour forward.
Which time are we talking? Name a time you're suggesting.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, it can be 8 p.m., but I can be much more sleepy than usually.
Yeah, perfect before sleep.
Yeah, what better to do than talk about Hive before sleeping?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like if we have a bit of wiggle room and we can figure it out offline afterwards. So that's good to know.
So will we switch to Jitsi or will we stay with Zoom?
That's also to see in the okay. I guess I just need to figure out all of the tools and see how easy it is to use them and and because like I don't know how often Roland pays for it. As far as I know, I think he pays by year, and so if he pays by year, we may have like another year or two to consume.
Because okay, yeah, I guess that'd be an important thing to figure out.
Because when we started those meetings, it was like a year ago when Hive started, so we are pretty much around that time. So it may already be too late.
Okay.
So I'll get back to him and you. You is a general you. About that.
Yeah, I guess just post about it Mattermost and we can figure it out there.
Yeah. So today, I think it was Andreas that brought up the soft cap problem in the HBE, and since we are, I know
yeah, we could talk about that briefly. So I think you just missed it, right? It looks like that just. I assume you intended to change it for both, and that we would basically both caps would ignore the amount in the DHF fund. Is that correct?
I think so. I think I only saw one. So I probably missed that there was a soft and a hard. So I only changed the hard.
So I think the correct solution in this case is just to make them both pay attention. Ignore the HBD that's in the Treasury fund.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that keeps it all simple. So that means we'll go back to when we get close to the cap, it'll stop printing HBD for posts, or slowly stop.
Yeah, and the question is more about, I know we are very close to hard fork 25, but do we wait for hard fork 26 or, because it should be a relatively simple change, right?
Oh, well, I think we need to do it now because it also impacts the Hive to HBD conversion.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, great.
So we don't really have a whole lot of choice. We got to make some decision now. And I thought the simplest thing to do after looking at it a little bit was we just ignore it for both, like it was intended originally. And I think that solves the whole problem.
Okay, great. Then onto the other questions. So guilty parties wanted to add the possibility for authors / apps to add a max accepted reward for authors, which already exists, and a max accepted reward for creators. And I feel like this could be done already through a smart use of beneficiaries and max reward.
Okay, well, if we can do it, if it can already be represented through an existing method, that sounds better to me. I mean, than doing something new.
Yeah, especially since it will require changing the post extension operation, etc. But yeah, I don't think it's impossible, although it's not perfect, let's say, because you need to calculate it, etc. But nothing that cannot be automated through a front end or anything.
Okay, so this would be a strictly front end change, you're saying?
I think so, because like let's say you want like $10 to creators and $1 to the author, then you can set 90% beneficiaries to null, and that way everything works, right? I mean, it's more complex than that because you have the 50-50, but you see the idea.
Okay. Yeah, I can look at the exact description later, but if it can be done through front end, that's clearly preferable. I think we certainly don't. I mean, we certainly couldn't include anything new like that. So right now, but if we can do it in the front end, that solves the whole issue.
So Gilbert is right. No, it would be something that could be set in the transaction, not per front end. But what I'm saying is that through what the front end, the way the front end defines the transaction, then we can achieve the same goal, basically.
Right. Right.
And then Archange.
So in other words, it can be represented theoretically right now. The front ends just can't produce, just don't produce the transaction in the proper form.
Yes, I think so. I haven't tested it myself, but I think we can get.
Okay, well, that's at least the first thing to check before we consider doing anything else. That's for sure.
Yeah. In any case, that would be for Half 26. So we have time before we figure out if it's possible or not.
Right.
Finally, Archange writes review of open issues on GitLab. Who, when, some are 1 year old. That will take a while, but we can like skim through things.
Yeah, I guess anyone who's involved in an issue can do that kind of thing. So certainly anybody who creates an issue should occasionally probably check the issues they created and see if they've either been done or no one's paid any attention to them, or if it looks like they don't really want them anymore, and close them out. So that's probably the biggest missing link, I would guess, is people filing them. As far as people who are, I think normally developers will usually try to close it out if they can, if they're comfortable to do so, but sometimes they may not be comfortable to do so without the input from the initial filer of the issue.
Yeah, but maybe that could be something that we include in the core dev meeting. Okay, which issues are crucial and still open, and
100%. That's right. Anybody who wants to bring issues forward that they think should be closed, for instance, or that aren't getting proper attention, on the other hand, is the other possibility. I think those are definitely fair game for any dev meeting.
I guess we could have a thing where I add like 5 of the oldest thing, and we move from there every.
Well, I mean, the thing is that we may know there's going to be ones that are persistently around for a long time, and we're just tracking that at some point it needs to be done. So it wouldn't make sense to just keep bringing something like that forward. But I think, I mean, I think maybe what we're really saying this year is we should be reviewing, as individuals, we should occasionally be reviewing the issues, and then if we think if something maybe needs to be done, or if it should be removed, just proposing in the meeting. I think that should be sufficient. I mean, I look at issues occasionally just to see if there's ones I can close out every once in a while, but then a lot of them I don't really know. So I guess the question is, if you think there's something that you don't know personally what should be done, but you feel like either it should be gotten rid of to clear up the issues table, or on the other hand, you think it should be looked at again, yeah, just bring it forward in the meeting.
Can we manage one? I have a good example.
Absolutely. Yes, of course. I think I read it, so.
Yeah, there was issue number 14. So about changing a recovery account from Steam to something else. So
oh yeah, that one.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, that could just be closed.
Yeah,
but I don't know how other people feel.
So for those where this is about, every old account a lot of accounts have their recovery account set to Steam. Yeah. And so the idea would be to force through a hard fork all of those accounts to change Steam for something else. And so there is a lot of debate that you can read on GitLab, and in the end, I feel like the consensus is that people can just change it themselves if they feel like it. And philosophically, we shouldn't really alter accounts just because we feel like it, and because it's wrong, quote unquote. If people want to be linked to Steam, they can still be linked to Steam. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, I don't think it was necessarily wrong. I just didn't think it was worth doing. I didn't see a lot of benefit to it. I didn't see a benefit to it ultimately, and that was why I just didn't feel it was worth the work. So I'm for closing it, but if somebody wants to advance some arguments to keep it open, I'm, go for it.
Okay, I will close it.
Okay.
You
also feel the same way?
Yeah, because I've worked a lot about account recovery and so on. So
you know the issues of, it's not like we can just randomly assign it to some trusted person and that works. Those people can't recover either, because how are they going to know who's the original person is? I mean, there's real problems there with that idea, and maybe the person who created it just didn't understand that.
Yeah, I was saying to myself, the one who created the issue should close it. That's why
I think that's great. I agree, and that's generally the case. So it's always good to try to contact the original issue person, but if we don't think that's feasible, then I think it's certainly fine to just close issues too. Yeah. We can't go hunting after people all the time.
Yeah, and each issue creator should track his own issue and asking
questions. I 100% agree with that. That's the first thing I was saying earlier. In fact, I was saying that if you create an issue, you should, it's a good policy to try to track it and see what's happening with it over time. I mean, that doesn't mean bug the devs, every day, but if you think it's an important issue and it's not, you get no response on it, then bring it forward verbally, and Mattermost or somewhere else. And on the other hand, if you decide it's not important anymore, just close it.
Perfect.
Probably, maybe I was too curious and maybe too courage, but I in the past closed few issues.
You're allowed to do that,
and always target an author to reopen it if he thinks the issue still happens, if it was some random bug, for example, or
I'm totally okay with that too.
And I think that's correct way if a given person will be interested in working over the issue, he or she will reopen it and contact us this way. So I think that's fine.
Yeah, I think both are good. I think it's generally, if we're not clear on the issue, it's better if the author closes it, because then we know that we correctly understood what they were talking about and that they've either, changed their mind or whatever. But on the other hand, if we're quite sure we understand what they're saying and it's just wrong, I think it's fine to close the issue too.
Okay.
Yeah, also very often the issues I saw you close were my issues that, like, because you merged my merge request, then you also close the issue. It just saves time. So that's
anytime we're merging an issue that's a fix, I think that's kind of even a different issue. In that case, definitely. Of course, it makes sense to close the issue.
So yeah, that's about it for this meeting. Do you guys have anything else? I always ask, but you rarely have anything.
Let's see. I guess the only other thing is on the DevSync side. So we're going to be doing some more performance reports over the next couple of days. So we'll just be we'll be reporting that as it comes out. And I guess we're going to need to get organized a little bit on exactly what we're going to do during the testnets operation, but maybe we'll just talk about that with whoever wants to participate in the testnet. I guess it's probably the right place for that. Yeah, so we can talk about that later. So I guess I got nothing else.
Okay, well, then have a good one, everyone. And I'll DM you very soon, Bartek, with some more stuff about the RC delegations and the test results.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
See you.
Okay, see you. Bye.